Hello and welcome. It's 10 a.m. on Monday, the 23rd of June. You're tuned into our mid-morning newscast here on ARIRANG TV. Let's take a look at what's making the headlines. An army sergeant who fled after a shooting spree that killed 5 soldiers and wounded 7 at a frontline army unit is close to being captured. This according to reports. Korea put up a spirited second-half performance but lose 4-2 to Algeria in their second World Cup group game. They'll need to beat Belgium in their final group game to have any chance of qualifying for the next round. Plus, Namhan Sansong, an ancient mountain fortress in Korea's southwestern city of Gwangju, makes it onto the UNESCO World Heritage List. Our top story this morning, though, the conscript sergeant who shot and killed 5 fellow soldiers and wounded 7 others near the border with North Korea is reportedly about to be captured. The soldier had been on the run after exchanging fire with soldiers late on Sunday night close to the border. The soldier, identified by his family name Im, was discovered hiding near a school on Sunday, some 10 kilometers from his base. The soldier opened fire on troops on Sunday night, wounding a platoon leader in the arm. Currently, the area is on lockdown and all residents have been evacuated. The military says troops had been ordered to shoot to kill unless the fugitive soldier surrendered. Although the motive for the shooting still remains unknown, officials say Im was on a list of soldiers that needed special attention as he had struggled to adapt to military life. We will, of course, keep you updated on this story as it develops. OK, World Cup news time. And Korea have gone down fighting in their second World Cup game against Algeria. They lost 4-2. For more on the thrilling match, let's connect to our SJ Lee for all the details. SJ, it really was some game.
Good morning to you, Mark. That's right. A rather high-scoring match between the two teams, with manager Hong Myung-bo utilizing the same lineup from the Russia match. So let's take a look at the highlights. Now, Korea looking rather shaky from the start as the Algerian offense played aggressively from the start. In the 26th minute, they finally find one back in the net as Islam Slimani scores off of a long pass, giving Algeria the 1-0 lead. But just 2 minutes later, the Korean defense collapses once again, giving up the second goal on a corner as Algeria goes up 2-0 early on. But the defense continues to struggle as Korea goes down 3-0 at the half. Now, Son Heung-min would score in the 50th minute, but that goes to waste as Korea quickly gives up another goal. Now, Koo Ja-chul would add the second Korean goal, but Algeria takes this match 4-2. Now, thousands of fans lined the streets to cheer for the Korean team despite their loss to Algeria. Now, it isn't all doom and gloom, however, as fans still have high hopes for the squad can reach the last 16. Connie Kim reports.
Disappointment was written across the faces of the tens of thousands of fans who braved the weather to cheer on Korea in their second World Cup group game against Algeria. Despite the heavy rain last night, nearly 40,000 people gathered in front of COEX, one of the biggest cheering spots in downtown Seoul, to support the Red Devils. Live music performances meant the atmosphere was festive before the match. The happy mood and optimism soon turned to disappointment, however, as Algeria stuck 3 goals past Korea in the first half. Although Team Korea's first victory didn't come in the match against Algeria on this Monday morning, hopes are high that their win will come in their match against Belgium on Friday morning.
Today's game was a turning point to make it further in the tournament. I thank Son Heung-min and Koo Ja-chul for scoring a goal each. Although we lost today, I support our team and believe we can do well in our next match.
If we play like we did during the second half of this game, I think we have a good chance of beating Belgium on Friday.
The fans said the team's poor defending in the first half cost them in the end.
Our attacking play was pretty good, but we were vulnerable to counterattacks. You never know what can happen in football. I believe we can win against Belgium and qualify for the last 16.
On the day of the big match against Belgium on Friday, the cheers will be heard all the way to Brazil. Fans across the country refuse to give up hope that Korea can go at least one stage further in the World Cup. Connie Kim, ARIRANG News.
And now moving on to other World Cup action from today, starting off with Belgium and Russia facing off this match. Of course, a big match, especially since Korea will be facing off against Belgium next. So let's take a look at the highlights. Now, Belgium already with 3 points and Russia needing a win in this match, but both sides are evenly matched throughout the first half. In fact, the match was a 0-0 draw up until the 88th minute when Divock Origi, who came off the bench, sends one past the goalkeeper, giving Belgium the 1-0 win. Now, with 6 points in Group H, Belgium advances to the next round. Meanwhile, another big match here, Portugal and the U.S. squaring off in Group G. It's Nani in the 5th minute of the match who sneaks one past the goalkeeper for an early 1-0 lead. But here's where it gets interesting. U.S. up 2-1 thanks to Clint Dempsey in the 81st, but literally just seconds before the whistle blows, Sylvester Valletta in the 90+5 minutes levels the match as both teams split a point each. And now finishing things off, let's take a look at the results from the previous day with some interesting results in Brazil. Now, first off, taking a look here, Argentina squaring off with Iran looked to be a shocking 0-0 draw, but what do you know? Leo Messi to the rescue in the 90+ minute, scores a brilliant goal, giving Argentina the 1-0 win. Meanwhile, Germany and Ghana facing off, and all the scores being scored in the second half. Ghana surprises everyone with a 2-2 draw. But for Miroslav Klose, who scored in the match, ties the World Cup goal scoring record of 15. And lastly, Nigeria taking on Bosnia and Herzegovina, a bit of a controversial match here, but Nigeria pulls away with the only goal of the match in the 29th minute as Algeria wins this one 1-0. And that's going to wrap it up for me. This has been SJ. Have a great rest of the day and see you guys again for your sports needs.
Now, in the rest of the day's news, the South Korean government is aiming to pressure Japan in response to the results of Tokyo's review of its landmark apology to comfort women. Issued back in 1993, the Kono Statement is Japan's acknowledgement of its military's involvement in wartime sexual slavery. Seoul's foreign ministry says it will take an active stance and confront the Japanese ambassador on the issue of the review and even raise the issue at the UN Human Rights Council. Japan had said that it had no intention to revise the statement, but Korea's foreign ministry said the results of the review had misleading content that undermined the credibility of the statement. Now, the troubled U.S. Homeland Missile Defense Program, heavily criticized for its unreliability, has finally carried out a successful test. The system, deployed 10 years ago by former President George W. Bush, is supposed to counter the long-range missile threat posed by North Korea. Shin Se-min has this report.
The U.S. missile defense system on Sunday struck down a simulated enemy missile over the Pacific in the first successful intercept test of the program since 2008. This will help validate the troubled Boeing-run ground-based mid-course defense system, which provides the sole U.S. defense against long-range ballistic missiles. Missile Defense Agency Director Vice Admiral James Saring called it a very important step in Washington's continuing efforts to improve and increase the reliability of the defense system. The Pentagon also said all components involved in the test performed as planned, and the officials will be assessing the performance of the system with the data collected from the test. The system had failed to hit dummy missiles in previous tests since the Bush administration deployed the system in 2004 to counter the threat posed by North Korea. It was reported on Friday that the Pentagon had restructured its contract with Boeing to put more emphasis on maintenance and reliability. Shin Se-min, ARIRANG News.
Now, strategic patience, that's the key US policy on North Korea. But while the United States patiently waits for the North to show its sincerity about denuclearizing, the regime is engaging in some diplomacy of its own, cozying up recently with Japan and Russia. So should Washington take a fresh approach to Pyongyang? Our Hwang Sang-hee posed that question to Frank Januzzi, who worked as Asia policy advisor for the Obama campaign back in 2008 and is now serving as the president of the Maureen and Mike Mansfield Foundation.
The most important thing is that North Korea continues to develop their nuclear capacity. And as long as the United States remains sidelined, I see no likelihood that that's going to change. Maybe putting people ahead of plutonium, focusing on some of the people-to-people interactions, which could address some of the pressing human rights concerns in North Korea, but also perhaps begin to create some greater enthusiasm inside North Korea among the elite for renegotiating the terms of their current path, their current commitment to nuclear weapons.
You just mentioned people over plutonium approach. What do you mean exactly by that?
So I think the United States and other parties to the six-party talks need to focus on building a constituency inside North Korea for change. It means even if you keep sanctions, doing things like family reunification visits, cultural exchanges, bringing North Korean students out of North Korea, all of these things can help show North Korea that the true path to security does not lie with nuclear weapons.
Really knowing that there is this huge nuclear threat in North Korea and just using the people-to-people approach, wouldn't that be too dangerous?
Well, the situation is dangerous now, and nothing that the six parties are doing is making it any less dangerous. So, admittedly, a people-focused approach will not yield immediate results on the nuclear threat that we face, but neither is the current strategic patience approach yielding anything in terms of a reduction of the threat.
President Xi Jinping will be coming to South Korea next month. Traditionally, Chinese leaders have visited North Korea before coming to South Korea. President Xi isn't doing that. Is this another sign of change in China-North Korea relations?
It's a very important signal by China that China sees the long-term future of the Korean Peninsula being decided more by Seoul than by Pyongyang. And China wants to have that discussion ultimately with South Korea. So I think it's a very good sign for China's recognition of the realities on the Korean Peninsula.
And that was Hwang Sang-hee speaking with Frank Januzzi, who is a US expert on North Korea. Now, back here in South Korea, and some great news for the country because Namhan Sansong Fortress in Gwangju has been added to the list of UNESCO World Heritage Sites. The decision was announced on Sunday at the 38th UNESCO World Heritage Committee meeting taking place in Doha, Qatar. This after the Cultural Heritage Administration had announced in late April that the International Council on Monuments and Sites had recommended the fortress for inscription. Namhan Sansong Fortress was built during the Joseon dynasty and it is where the king stayed and worked during the second Manchu invasion of Korea in 1636. The fortress had a temporary palace and Buddhist temples, and monks were mobilized to build and manage the facility. With the addition of the site, South Korea has 11 items on the World Heritage List. If you include North Korea, it has 14. Now, as you can see there, Korea boasts a variety of rich cultural assets and traditions from its thousands of years of history, with dozens of UNESCO-registered heritage and intangible assets. Now, there's a special free tour program for all expats living here in Korea that introduces them to UNESCO-listed World Heritage items right here in Korea. Our Park Ji-won reports.
This is Hwaseong Fortress, located in Suwon, some 40 kilometers south of Seoul. the late 18th century defense fortress, representing an innovative military architecture of the Joseon dynasty, was registered on the UNESCO World Heritage List in 1997. Dozens of expats are taking a stroll around the UNESCO site as part of one-day tour organized by Korea's Culture Ministry and the Korean Culture and Information Service.
I really love the way Korean present their culture and present their country. This program made me realize how rich the Korean culture is.
It is an excellent program. We are enjoying every bit of it. Wonderful people, and of course, Korea is a fascinating country.
The tour program invites Korea's international residents to explore UNESCO-listed World Heritages. The tours are free of charge for all foreigners living in Korea. Anyone who's interested in signing up can register online at www.heritageinkorea.kr. 6 more such programs will be provided throughout the year, each focusing on different UNESCO-registered Korean cultural assets, both tangible and intangible, such as the Korean martial art, taekyeon, and kimchi-making culture. Each of the tours will include a discussion and a lecture, and of course, a hands-on visit to heritage sites or the region of the intangible traditions. Park Ji-won, ARIRANG News.
Local think tanks have lowered their economic growth forecasts for Korea, affirming expectations that the aftermath of April's Sewol-ho ferry disaster will continue to put a dampener on private consumption. The state-run Korean Institute of Finance on Sunday revised its forecast down by 0.1 percentage point to 4.1%, citing the ferry disaster. Hyundai Research Institute also revised down its forecast to 3.6%, adding that there's a possibility that the economy will take a detour from its recovery track in the second half of the year. Now, people around the country here in Korea could soon see their public utility and service fees go up. The fees for natural gas, water, garbage disposal and bus and subway services in Seoul, Busan, Daegu, Sejong and Jeju are all under consideration. If the plan is approved, the price of natural gas in Seoul will go up for the first time in 5 years, and in Jeollabuk-do province for the first time in 8 years. Natural gas prices in Cheongnam-do province had been on the decline for the past 3 years, but would rise under this plan. The biggest rise, though, among the lot is city bus fares in Jeju, which could see a 20% hike. Critics say the rate hike is an easy solution that does not consider the financial burden on low and middle income households. A thorough review of the plan is already underway. Time now for a look through the international headlines we are following on this Monday morning. For that, we connect live to our Eunice Kim standing by at the news centre. Good morning, Eunice.
Hello, Mark.
So Sunni militants have continued to make some serious headway in Iraq.
You're absolutely right, Mark. They've seized a pair of border crossings, one with Syria and the other with Jordan in northwestern Iraq, putting the militants closer to taking over the Iraqi capital of Baghdad. Now, this is because they now have control of the Abu Kamal Qaim crossing, also a strategic supply route connecting to eastern Syria, which is largely in the hands of ISIL militants who, of course, want to create an Islamic caliphate there. Now, insurgents firmed up their grip over the region further by taking 4 more towns, effectively controlling now some 70% of the Anbar province. Complicating the response to the tensions is Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, who came out to strongly oppose U.S., quote, intervention in Iraq. He said the insurgency in Iraq was led by extremists and remnants of Saddam Hussein's regime, and that it was not a sectarian war between Shiites and Sunnis. It remains to be seen what impact the leader's statements will have on the possibility of old enemies Tehran and Washington working together to defend Baghdad. The United States has unlocked $575 million in military aid to Egypt. This days after the country's army chief Abdul Fattah al-Sisi was sworn in as the country's president. The news came as U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry was in Cairo to meet with al-Sisi, during which he stressed to the new head of state the importance of upholding the rights and freedoms of all citizens. Al-Sisi won the national polls on a platform of security but has pursued a crackdown on the Muslim Brotherhood, which boycotted the May elections. Kerry also pledged Washington would, quote, stand with the Egyptian people in their fight for the future they want. More attacks by Boko Haram militants in the Nigerian state of Borno. Dozens of villagers are feared dead in Kwarang Ilam and Korong Inim, towns close to Chibok, where more than 200 schoolgirls were kidnapped from their dormitories back in April. Villagers said Boko Haram fighters peppered the villages with ammunition for 6 hours, while others torched homes and chased down fleeing people. Boko Haram militants have killed hundreds of Nigerians in that region in recent months. And finally, a humanitarian crisis could be looming in Pakistan as a full-scale army offensive is underway in the tribal region of North Waziristan. Some 350,000 people have been displaced in the past week as Pakistani forces strike Taliban and foreign militants hiding out in the mountainous region bordering Afghanistan. The raid comes in response to a deadly airport attack in Karachi earlier this month, which an Uzbek militant group said it was responsible for. Fleeing refugees told the BBC they were angry for the military's bombing of their homes. They also said a refugee camp set up in the nearby town of Banu lacked basic necessities like water, food, and sanitation.
Get connected to Korea and the world. Join us every weekday for the latest developments out of Korea, Asia, and beyond. On air, on your mobile, and online, we lead the way every day. ARIRANG News.
To try and resolve the crisis in Ukraine, the European Union also offers 15 billion. Now we have some very good and exciting sports news for you, because Korean-American Michelle Wie has won the US Women's Open, earning her first major championship title. Wie closed with an even par 70 at Pinehurst No. 2 on Sunday local time for a 2-under 278 total. This put the 24-year-old 2 shots ahead of No. 1 ranked American Stacey Lewis. Wie turned pro in October 2005, but this marks her first win at a major tournament. Now, researchers in Korea have come up with a way to give robots the sense of touch using artificial skin. Now, one of the uses of this is it could make them more suitable for physical human interaction. Now, Son Jung-in has this report.
A robot that can feel the sense of touch just like a human. It seems unrealistic, but local researchers have come up with new technology that could equip robotic devices for the future. Korea's Electronics and Telecommunications Research Institute recently developed a transparent touch sensor sheet that perceives information from surroundings in real time, such as the amount of pressure, direction, and temperature of touch. Only 50 micrometers thick, it can be bent or rolled without affecting sensor signals it detects, even when force is applied to various spots at the same time, just like when shaking hands with someone.
Upon touch, light scatters on the spot and the panel detects the difference between the input light and the output light.
Thanks to its thin and flexible qualities, the panel is applicable on nearly any surface, which makes it ideal for a wide variety of future uses, most notably in the flexible display market.
This technology will enable us to maneuver robot hands in a very delicate way. It could also be applied to wearable devices for people to operate in an elaborate manner.
The result of its research has led to the filing of 8 related patents and was featured in the scientific journal Advanced Materials. Son Jung-in, ARIRANG News.
morning. Well, outbreaks of rain is in store for today. In fact, it's raining heavily right now outside of our studio, and temperatures will be hovering in the low to mid-20s across the nation, which should be similar to yesterday. And we kicked off under lots of clouds, and sudden showers of 5 to 40 millimeters will fall, along with thunder and lightning, and even hail can be ruled out in most regions throughout the day. And weather outlook for this week, temperatures are on the rise again, but isolated showers will continue to fall as for the remainder of the week, and it will be a good idea to keep an umbrella in your bag. With that in mind, here are the readings for today. The high in the capital and Daegu will rise to 27, while Busan should make it to 23. And for other regions, down on Jeju, I should see a high of 24, while Daejeon and Dokdo will reach 26 and 20. That's all for now, and back to you, Mark.
Thank you very much, Jian, and that's all we have for now, definitely. We will be back at noon Korea time for another newscast. Until then, goodbye.